Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. We're returning to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before, and I would say that this brewery is best known for their different kinds of lager beer, although they do quite a few different other beers that are also very good actually. But the one that we're having a look at today is a sub-style that I very much enjoy, but also one that you don't find that many examples of here in Sweden, so it should hopefully make for an interesting review. So hopefully it's a good beer and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to head down to Malmö, a little bit south of me here in Lund, and we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Hyllie Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Pinkhead. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a rice pilsner. So as you know, if you've watched the channel before, I do enjoy a nice rice lager, but I don't think I've ever had one that has been specifically called a rice pilsner, and that was the thing that really caught my interest with this one, and also the fact that I know Hyllie do some very nice lager beers. So yeah, hopefully this is another good one, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on it. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, before we taste the beer, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hyllie Bryggeri before. We will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. You can check out all the playlists of beers from different countries in there as well. You will find this one in the Swedish playlist, and as always, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you would like to see more beer reviews. Your support is always hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Hyllie Bryggeri before we try this one. So Hyllie Bryggeri started off as the homebrewing experimentations of Michael Nathorst, who's from Vintria, which is a few minutes to the south of Hyllie in the southern part of Malmö. So for a number of years he was a home brewer, and he basically built up his own brewery in his garage, where he was experimenting with lots of different kinds of beers and brewing a little bit with his friends. But he started brewing in his garage in around 2013, and he also worked for a number of years in the plumbing industry, and for a period of time he was working 4 days as a plumber and then 1 day with the brewery. But he was good friends, or is good friends I should say, with Torsten Ekne, who was the original owner of Beerditch in Malmö. And when Beerditch began, Michael decided that he was going to turn his garage brewery into a proper brewery, and so he registered Hyllie Bryggeri in 2015 as an official company. But at the brewery these days, Michael is joined by Erik Frithiof, who is a partner in the company, and he deals with the sales and marketing side of things, but he's also one of the founders of the Great Swedish Beer Festival. But in 2019, the brewery joined forces with Psychopipes and Limhamns Bryggeri to form a new company that owned a brewery building, and they were brewing their beers there. The three companies were brewing their beers there for a little while. They had a 1,000 litre brew kit, but unfortunately this arrangement only lasted a few months, and Hyllie Bryggeri moved out to a farm just outside of Vintria because, as I say, things just didn't work out. But throughout 2020, they were contract brewing a number of their beers, but they actually very recently invested in a new premises in Malmö that was an old kind of car park. They've converted it into a brewery. It's got a 2,000 litre brewing system, and they also recruited Johan Lagerkrantz as their head brewer. He had spent 5 years working in New Zealand, and they opened their Stormgatan tap room soon after the brewery was up and running, and you can find it. It's about 2 minutes walk away from Malmö Central Station, and I do highly recommend that you go and check it out. If you're interested, you can have a look at my out and about video. But as of September 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 115 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they do actually have a little lunch restaurant close to the brewery as well these days. So yeah, that's another thing that you can check out as well. I'm not sure if that's just a kind of temporary thing for this summer, or if it will be a more permanent thing, but we'll just need to wait and see going forward. But yeah, the Stormgatan tap room is open pretty much every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm not sure about Sunday, I can't quite remember. But yeah, Hyllie Bryggeri is well worth visiting if you find yourself in Malmö. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Hyllie Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery websites. You can check out some of my other reviews I've done from this brewery as well. And the two beers I would recommend that you try from them would be the Skånsk Lager, which I really enjoy that one just as a nice kind of light session beer, and also the Hyllie West Coast IPA, proper old school and very nice. And they do release quite a few New England hazies, usually one every 2 months or something like that. But yeah, definitely a brewery that you want to check out, and these guys are pretty respected here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at the beer itself. That's everything we need from the brewery notes. But yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is very, very nice. You can see at the top of the can there is the Hyllie water tower, which you'll see on the train when you come to or go, when you come to Malmö or go toward Copenhagen, you'll see it. But yeah, beautiful artwork, this one. As I said earlier, this one comes in at 5% ABV. It's a 440ml can, plain silver top on it. And yeah, it should be very, very nice, this one. Yeah, this is the first, I don't know, this could well be the first Swedish rice lager that I've had, but I might be telling you lies there. It's a bit difficult after you've reviewed about 3,300 different beers. But yeah, should be good anyway. But 5% ABV, and I believe this one was released in, I don't know if this one was released in July or June of 2022 through Systembolaget. But let's get it out and have a look at it and see how we go. So, yeah, this should be quite interesting. So, remember, the main difference between a lager and an ale is the temperature at which the fermentation takes place, because you've got different kinds of yeast for that. So, lager yeasts tend to ferment between 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, whereas ale yeasts ferment at a little bit of a higher temperature, 15 to 18 degrees normally. And when it comes to these rice lagers, usually what they do is they grind away a little bit of the kind of, what they call it, the grist of the rice grain to clean it up, and then they put that into the beer and let it ferment along with all the sugars and things that you have from the wort boil. I'm a big fan of Japanese sake, of course, and that's probably one of the reasons why I enjoy rice lagers so much, actually. But yeah, as I say, very curious to see what this offering is going to have in store for us, especially because we know Hyllie Bryggeri are very capable when it comes to lager brewing. But yeah, this looks pretty nice and pretty much as you would expect for a lager beer, so, or a rice lager I should say. So before the head disappears, you can see it's poured with about a 3/4 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. There is a little bit of bumpiness to it if we bring it up to the camera. There you can see. It still looks very, very nice, but yeah, you've got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it, and it does have a degree of transparency to it, but there is a degree of kind of cloudiness at the same time. But 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look pretty much as you would expect from any kind of Pilsner, and also a rice Pilsner. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you put in, 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to change that a little bit, but any adjuncts that you put in or any barrel aging that you do can and often do for affect the colour of the beer that you're going to get. But yeah, nothing untoward about the appearance of this beer, and just a few little bubbles heading up toward the bottom of the head. So yeah, nothing else really to say about the appearance. Let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we go. Nearly took a little bit of it up the nose there. But yeah, straight away with this one, first impression of it is that it doesn't have the most pungent of aromas, but then you wouldn't expect that from a rice Pilsner. It's got a lovely little bit of smoothness in the malt base. You can smell a bit of the Pilsner malt. There's a wee bit of cracker and things like that. But yeah, the green component's quite muted as well, and it just comes across as very smooth and kind of quite humble beer almost, could we say. Yeah, the aroma on this one is not madly pungent, but I think this will be nice. I think this is one of these beers that's going to open up a little bit when we actually have a taste of it. But yeah, it does smell nice. It does have me getting a little bit thirsty, I have to say. So yeah, backbone of the beer then. Absolutely with this one, you can smell a little bit of a fresh, hedgehog roll, white bread crust, that's in there. I'm getting a lot of Jacob's cream cracker out of this one, or knäckebröd. There's a little bit of that going on in here. You can smell a little bit of that crispness toward the back of the nose from the Pilsner malt, but not too much. And you can smell that what's going on with the rice and the kind of biscuity notes is very interesting in this one, because you can feel them sort of almost fighting each other for influence in this beer. So you get a bit of the oily smoothness that you would expect from the rice, and I would say that the rice in this one comes across as quite oily and a little tiny touch aromatic. Remember, when we're talking about rice, it can be affected by the different soil profile, the different water profiles of the different area that it's grown in. You can get all of these variables when it comes to that. That's why certain regions in Japan are well known for their rice, and that rice is very kind of sought after by all the sake breweries in the different prefectures. But certainly with this beer, you've got the bit of cracker in there, you get a little touch of white bread, but then on top of that you can smell the oily rice. And that kind of starts to dominate the beer a little bit, although in fairness you do get a wee bit of yeasty character later on too. I certainly get little bits of McVitie's Digestive in there, but it's almost like the kind of the rice is just sort of pushing back against the it is almost just a little bit like the rice is pushing back against the kind of biscuity side of the beer. But yeah, fresh bread crust, you know, Jacob's cream cracker, knäckebröd sort of thing, white bread, some Pilsner crispness further back, and then the McVitie's Digestive biscuit, and then the sort of oily rice on top. You can smell all of that. At the back of the nose, you certainly do get a little bit of a more yeasty character out of this one. I do wonder if this beer has a little touch of wheat in it, because there's just something about the bready character that's telling me that it might. But it says no, just in Swedish, ingredients are vatten, corn malt, ris och humle. So yeah, no, it is just barley malt that's in this one with some rice. I just wondered, I thought, because there was a wee bit of bitiness coming with, so in this case, it must actually be coming from the yeast. So yeah, at the back of the nose, you definitely get a sort of really airy, white bready sort of thing, and it does almost have a wee touch of a kind of spicy note to it. So that's going to be interesting to see how that develops in the flavour. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the kind of malty and yeasty side of the beer. When it comes to the hoppy side of things, again, it's quite muted and quite humble in its aroma. You get a little touch of a kind of smooth earthiness in there. There's a little bit of floral character, but for me, the whole green component of the beer is quite sort of oily, and it does have a degree of wetness to it. Now, the grassy notes, you get some grassy notes at the front of the nose, and that does have a wee bit of zestiness to it, but it's not, again, it's just not overly pungent. So yeah, you've got this lovely, just a little bit of grassiness in there, a little bit of floral character behind it. I'd be very curious to know what hop they've used in this one, because it does have a little bit of that almost Slovenian smoothness to it, but at the same time, it does have a little bit of a kind of German brightness on the grassy side of things. I'm pretty sure it's not Czech that's in this, although I'll say that now, and it probably will be Czech hops. But yeah, it could also be something a bit more American, or, you know, there's a wee, because there is a wee touch of like dry tropical fruit to this one. But yeah, green component for me is mainly grassy, a little touch zesty, but overall it is quite oily, this one. So yeah, I think that goes together really nicely on the green component. For the fruity side of things, for me, it's, you know, it's kind of the typical notes you would get. There's a little bit of a kind of sultana type note to this one, and that comes across as quite oily because of the rice, you know, that dry white green grapey note, maybe a little touch of gooseberry as well. Little tiny bit of pear, but for me, yeah, it's sultanas and gooseberry that come to mind for this one. There is a wee touch of an apricot-y, maybe slightly papaya type note in there, but it's these very kind of dry, soft tropical fruits that you're getting out of this beer. So yeah, aroma wise, this is very nice, and I will say the more that you smell of this one, the kind of oilier it starts to get. So yeah, aroma wise, that is a very, very nice smelling beer, I have to say. Gives you everything you would want from the rice lager. You get that extra oiliness, and you can smell this kind of slight sweetness of the rice too. But I think it's about time that we taste this one. As I always say, take a bit of time to smell the beer before you get stuck into it, because that's half the experience. But yeah, this one is the Pink Head Rice Pilsner, coming in at 5% ABV from Hyllie Bryggeri in Malmö here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's nice. I'm going to say straight away, just a really, really easy drinking beer. And the first impression I had of it was, it's a little bit more just like a kind of rice lager, but then the further you go into the aftertaste with it, the kind of hoppiness that you would want from the Pilsner and the kind of slight dryness from the malt that you would want, that really comes out in this one. So this is one, when you take it in, it's very, very oily, just like a kind of regular kind of Asian rice lager, but then you start to get the Pilsner characteristics out of it a wee bit later on. But again, that's another really, really solid lager beer from Hyllie Bryggeri. Yeah. Gets a thumbs up from me for sure. Let's get the rest of the can in there. This is going to go down very, very easy. To say, it's quite warm outside, so probably go and sit outside and just enjoy the rest of this after the video. But yeah, another very, very solid lager. from Hyllie Bryggeri, and it is pretty much what you would expect from this style, if that makes sense. So let's break it down for you and describe it a wee bit more. So straight away across the middle of your palate, you get a little bit of that bread crusty kind of dryness there, which I really do like. On top of that, you've got a nice kind of smooth white bready character, absolutely. You can feel that just forming the backbone. And it's interesting because you get a little bit, the further you go into the aftertaste, between the bread crust and the white bread, you can feel a little bit of that knäckebröd, Jacob's cream cracker type thing coming out of the beer. But it just takes a wee bit of time to show itself that, because that was actually quite prominent in the aroma when we were looking at that earlier. But yeah, I still think it works. It does work really well in that sense. But this beer, you will find that it does get drier and drier the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, as I say, bread crust, little bit of cracker later on, white bread, and then on top of that, you can feel the kind of Pilsner aspects just coming out. So if you go toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you start to get the kind of dryness from the Pilsner malt. That is absolutely there, and that actually starts to dominate a little bit the further into the aftertaste that you go to. But when you come further forward from that, you can feel there's a little sort of circle in the middle of your palate. So from the dead centre of your tongue, you can feel as you go further out, you can feel the slight concentration of the alcohol there, but then as you move out toward the edge of the palate, you get that slightly more McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. But on top of that, you've got the oiliness from the rice, and that does kind of dominate the biscuit a little bit. The biscuit is only a very kind of mild flavour in essence, but yeah, you really get the Pilsner malt dryness coming out of this one. So that is quite interesting. Yeah. It's interesting how this one, it gets wetter and more oily the further that you go into it as well, but it gets a big thumbs up from me. I think it's nice. Just, as I say, thumbs up from me, this one. Very, very easy to drink that. Absolutely. I wonder if they'll, do that. Maybe if this was a collaboration with, I forget what the noodle shop is in the Salahallen in Malmö, but that would be a nice kind of house beer for them to have when you think about it. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate with this one. So toward the back third of the palate then, for me, the back third of the palate definitely shows you all the yeasty kind of character of the beer. So the base of that back third of the palate, definitely the graininess is a bit drier. On top of that, you get the kind of more fluffy white bread, but at the same time, it has a wee bit of spiciness to it, which comes out quite a lot. But you can feel that more airy white bread, and then on top of that, there's just a little touch of an almost kind of, you can feel a slightly more sweet white bread coming out. And these, of course, are the yeasty characteristics, but it was that little bit of kind of spice and bite that made me wonder from the aroma if this beer did have a little bit of wheat in it. But yeah, obviously it's just the different characteristics of the yeast. But yeah, I like how this goes together, as I said. So on the, I think that's everything we need to say about the yeasty and malty side of this beer. The only other thing is that it does have a very, very slightly woody note at the front of that middle third of the palate, but that takes a wee while to come out. But I think we can move on to the hoppy side of the beer. So back corners of the palate, you definitely have a little bit of earthiness there, and as you come further forward in this one, you've got a good little bit of a floral, aromatic, spicy sort of thing with this one, which I do enjoy. The kind of floral aromatic spice is a lot more pungent in the flavour than it was in the aroma for sure. Yeah, no, that's good. But it mellows out again. The more you drink of the beer, it does kind of mellow out, and the whole beer starts to get more and more oily the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness in there. It very quickly becomes quite spicy and floral. Could it be a little bit of Columbus or a little bit of Magnum or something in here? I do wonder. But yeah, it moves just that little bit further forward, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate, you actually have quite a mellow floral note, and then round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more oily and grassy, and then yeah, there's just a wee bit of zestiness coming out of this one too, which is good. Yeah, green component is very nice, and it, the Pilsner malt and the hoppy character this one has is what really makes it a Pilsner rather than just a, a rice lager. But yeah, I like it. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink that again. A very good beer for eating with some ramen for sure. So front third of the palate and the fruity side of things then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up with this one. The base of that front third of the palate is certainly a little bit bready. On top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, toward the back of that front third of your palate, I actually do. I think when I taste this now, I think there's American hops in here. I do wonder if it could be a little bit of, it could be a little bit of Soriachi Ace or something like that. I do wonder about that actually, because it has this pungently citrusy note at the back of it. It's like a really strong, slightly lemony, but almost very slightly passion fruity citrus. Could there be a wee bit of Soriachi Ace in this? I do wonder. But yeah, so you get that slightly stronger citrusy note there. It's not grapefruit, definitely not, and it's not quite passion fruit, but you get that really strong zesty citrus at the back of the front third of your palate. But as you come further forward, again, it sort of mellows out and sweetens up a little bit. You get a little bit of that sultana, you get a little bit of an oily pear. And as you move further forward, you do start to get, you can feel there's a little touch of like I don't really want to call it gooseberry, but it's not far away from being a gooseberry note. And as you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue, it's a little bit more kind of limey, like a Motueka or an Equinaut lime kind of note you're getting out of this one. But that mixes in with all the sort of grassy, the kind of grassy flavours that you're getting out of this beer. So yeah, fruity component is a lot more complex, and the beer is certainly a lot more, it's certainly a lot more hoppy in the flavour than it was in the aroma, but you would want a Pilsner to be more hoppy, so that is not a bad thing by any means. But yeah, flavour profile wise, I quite like this one. I think this has turned out very, very nicely, so a thumbs up to Hyllie Bryggeri for this beer. It's done a good job with it. So yeah, I think we can have a little look at the mouthfeel then to round off with this beer. So on the spectrum, I would say it's at the top end of light-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one. This is actually quite an oily lager, in my opinion, but that's what you want from a rice lager. But we do have to consider the Pilsner element in there as well. It does have the cleanness and the crispness that you would expect to the Pilsner, so a little bit oily, but at the same time quite crisp and clean in that way. In terms of IBUs, I think this is about 30. I think it does have a wee bit, it does have that nice little bit of kind of floral spiciness on the sides of the palate, which makes it seem a little bit bitter, but I think this could be about 30 IBUs. And the fruity side of this one again is quite oily, and it's got a good little, it's actually got quite a bit of citrusy zest to it, but you have got those more oily notes and a little bit of the tropical fruit coming out of it as well. As I say, I would love to know what the hop profile on this one is, because there's something that tells me it could be a little bit like Soriachi Ace and Motueka or something like that. Equinaut would be another option for a limey type thing, but equally it could be something, it could actually just be something like Galaxy. Galaxy has that big pungent citrusy note to it, but I would think that would give you more passion fruit. Always fun to play guess the hops with these beers, but I would be very, very curious about this one just because of that kind of zesty profile that it has. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about this one. So this was the Pinkhead Rice Pilsner, 5% ABV from Hyllie Bryggeri, another solid lager, and definitely worth getting a can if you find yourself in Stimble Lag. I think it only cost me like 30 kroner or something, this one, so that's about €3, $3.30, £2.70, something like that. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Make sure you check out some of the Hyllie Bryggeri beers. You can check out you can check out their social media, you can check out my social media, and we will be back again very, very soon with more beer reviews. But yeah, Pinkhead Rice Pilsner, 5% ABV from Hyllie Bryggeri in Malmö here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Till the next time, slange, skål, cheers, and many more beers to come.